So I want to assume that we've all bought into this idea of a post-Apartheid South Africa as it has been sold to us as a rainbow nation. And what I want to do, assuming that we all have bought into this idea, is talk about a few little ways in which we can begin to live this rainbow nation. Particularly, how can we begin to live this idea, or rather this value of social inclusiveness? How can we begin to include other people into our own worlds, as it were? How we begin to expand this idea of who is a member of our community? I want to do that through a personal narrative and also a little bit of my own academic work. So a personal and academic narrative. Finally, to the water. And I got some ice in my mouth. I don't know why I did that. So, yeah, forgive me. Anyway, there you have it. It's out. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. So my life really begins in some kind of bang, right? So my dad sends me over to live with my grandmother. I was about 5.5, going for 6. And I was due to start my first day of school, pre-primary school, or primary school, actually. And my grandmother wakes up and says, I have an idea. We're actually going to sell marijuana. Okay? I don't know what marijuana was at the time, but I soon found out what marijuana was. So my grandmother and I had this very lucrative marijuana business, I should say. It was not as exciting as it may sound. The thing is illegal. You know, you do know that. So, and you may not ask me for a baggie afterwards. I did not bring any. Here's the thing, though. The thing is that my life became very chaotic at a very young age. My grandmother was, I call her militant. And when I say grandmother, think of someone who's not old. At the time, she was probably in her late 40s, early 50s. So she was a grandmother biologically. She was militant. She was a militant person. So my life was very regimented. I had a timetable for how to clean, what to clean, when to clean it, what to cook, how to cook it, that kind of life. Add to that the kind of raids that we had from policemen would come in trying to discover where on earth is this weed. And on top of that, trying to figure out at that young age who were the legitimate customers and who were the police undercover. On top of that, this unwanted adventures into different parts of the world, of the country, sourcing out what my grandmother described as the best weed, right? She wanted the best, and she was very clear on this. So my life was very regimented, and I did not like it. As a result, I did not have time nor the skills to have friends or friendships. I didn't play. I was robbed of a childhood, you could say. And so I came up with a very ingenious idea. But, damn, I'm going to create my own friends. And I had these imaginary friends. Now, I was very disappointed to see that years later, or recently, there was a movie called Avatar, right? And I realized that, wow, David Cameron must have had the same problems I had, because my imaginary friends looked at the people from Pandora. They were like the Navi. They were blue, pointed ears, and all of that. So those were kind of friends I kept around when I was young. And I also fought a lot. So if you bumped into me for some reason or other, I was very angry, understandably, I think. So I would fix you very quickly. That didn't do well for me having friends either. Anyway, long story short, I eventually figured, okay, it's enough. At one point, where he had covered the front page of the newspaper for the biggest bust in Natal at the time, and so I figured, and the kind of interrogations were getting a bit severe. I figured I had to leave. So I packed my bags, packed my imaginary friends, and packed a few skills with me. And that was the few skills I packed. Really was just a stubbornness to begin. I became very stubborn, and also I just had a work ethic that was, I just worked. That's what I did. So I packed my skills, packed my friends, packed my clothes, and I left. So this leaving of mine coincided with my parents divorcing. My mother went to Pietermaritzburg, and I thought, okay, perhaps I'll have a chance to create friends. Perhaps I can begin to be social now that I'm out of this prison, so to speak. And so I left for Pietermaritzburg. Now, unfortunately, life had another surprise waiting for me. When I got to Pietermaritzburg, I discovered that my mother, she had been there for a year before I arrived, was incredibly sick. At the time, I did not know why or what was the issue, and I think I was young enough for her to try and explain to me what the issue was. But the long story short is that my mother lives with HIV/AIDS, and at the time, ARVs and all of that, and AZT, and you name it, they had a lot of toxins in them. She was very sick. And then I have 2 younger sisters, so it turned out that I had to now play dad, as it were. So indeed, I played dad. So I got a job in school. I didn't want to stay out of school. So I got a job, and I used to get paid R1 a day to pay my school fees. And in between that, I used to work. This time I was in what they call now grade 7. We used to call it standard 5 back in the day. And that's what I did. And from there, really just worked doing various other things. And so I missed out here again on the opportunity to become social, to make friends. And so I kind of observed it from the edges. I did have friends, I should say. I still kept my imaginary friends, but I was kind of like the awkward person, the kind of one who just thinks a lot. I kind of like delayed on catching the jokes or that kind of thing. Maybe it's because I was busy having conversations in my head. So, and that was the problem. And so my life was around taking care of other people and those kind of responsibilities. And then came the time to go to university. Now, I told you that I worked, so I worked my butt off, and I got into UCT. And so I finally thought, okay, maybe, just maybe, this is it. This is my chance. I'm going to be a social butterfly. I'm going to create friends. It's going to be awesome. Yes, it did become awesome eventually. But here's the thing. It took a bit of work. It took a bit of me realizing that I kind of didn't like the person I was and didn't like the life that I had. So that kind of self-awareness, like, something is wrong here and something needs to change. And that's one of the things that I realized. And then another thing that dawned on me at some point was that I did not have enough to go around in terms of money. In fact, I was working still. I did not have a lot of social skills. I was not the cool kid. I was not wearing fancy clothes. But I was a big fat nerd. So I realized that my friends were not big fat nerds. In fact, they were social butterflies. And that we could, in fact, have an exchange of value. So I gave them what they needed, helped them with their assignments, and they gave me what I needed. They invited me to the cool parties, so I started meeting girls, observing all the nice, observing how they were interacting with people. And I kind of took on those skills and started building those skills which I needed. Long story short, no, I do not have a friendship form to hand out so that you can be my friends. You can if you want. So things have moved a long way. Now, it's interesting that you may leave your past behind, but it never really leaves you behind. And how that is the case is because I now study friendships. That's part of what I study for part of my work. And so what I started thinking about in my own personal life and looking at the data that I had and just engaging with these students, these first-year students at UCT. So let me tell you a little bit about that. Yes. So I wanted to study what is it really that influences students' friendships, to form friendships, and that some of these friendships end up being what we call racially diverse, and some of them end up being racially homogeneous. How is it? How does it happen? Year after year we see this, and a lot of research is showing us through observational studies. We take cameras and we take pictures, and you see it on Jameson steps at UCT. It's the same patterns. The dining halls, the same patterns. What on earth is going on? So I wanted to talk to these students, but I wanted to understand what happens to real friendship groups. So I recruited these incoming students into focus groups. I had 17 of them, and I followed them, or we spent time throughout the entire year unpacking this whole friendship-making process. There are a lot of things that came out of it, but you will not believe, maybe you will. Speaking about accent, Steve was talking about accent earlier on, how accent, something that seems so small and trivial, becomes such a huge thing. In this particular conversation, we're talking about the fact that I was struggling to recruit white participants, right? And I wanted to understand, why is this? How is it that I'm struggling with them, recruiting white participants? And Jessica says to me, well, I think because your accent isn't like that black accent, I felt more comfortable than I would had it been like a heavy black accent. And a friend joins and says, well, I feel safer. Sorry, by the way, this is a mixed group, racially mixed group. She said that she felt safer. I think that we come from the same place based on my accent, although she has no other data to base this on. And then the interesting one says, of course, Trevor Noah says this. If you've got a black broken accent, it just doesn't sit well. It kind of has resonated with being dumb, all right? Now, this is an interesting idea because this is what's going on, and we could interpret this in many, many ways. how I want to take it and what I would like us to look at it is to look at it and make an example with the dating world and say, how can we begin to move out of that kind of problem so that we may begin to include other people in our lives, not shut them out purely on the basis of their accent. Now, bear with me. Let me make an analogy. Now, guys, bear with me. Please, bail me out on this one, right? You would know that if you try to approach what you perceive to be an attractive woman, right, there are certain things that you need to do, okay? I want to suggest to you that it's the same process that you need to do when creating friendships or meeting new people. There are 3 things that you need to do, I find in my experience. Smile, greet, and banter. Now, the mistake we make, which is the same mistake those students are making, which is the same mistake I've made, is that we see someone, right? We may smile, but then they start speaking, right? And then we think, hold on, ish. Kumri, no. So that's a problem. The mistake we make here is that just like in the dating world, you see an attractive woman, and as guys, what we often do is we give that woman a whole lot of value and status, which she has not earned, purely on the basis that she's attractive, right? What we do in social situations, we take away value and status from someone purely on the basis of how they speak. We take that person from the pedestal. We shouldn't be putting or taking away people from the pedestal. Let us engage. That's the part where you banter. So you smile at the woman, you greet her, and you banter with her. And if she so happens to be interesting beyond her looks, maybe you could ask out for a date. You know, see what I mean? So the thing is that what I want us to do is to expand our world. Let us begin to smile at people. Be the kind of person who smiles at people. They kind of go, what is he smiling about? You know, that kind of thing. And greet people. And yes, banter about the weather. Isn't it just a lovely day today, right? Or one of my favorite ones is, it works well as well. Guys, you can take this one free from me. If you want to pick up women, it really works well. So enter someone's world from where they are. You know, you see someone reading a book, right? Oh, that looks like an interesting book. Do you think I might enjoy it? In other words, I'm asking you to be curious, genuinely be curious about other human beings that you meet. This is all important. Why? This is all important because I think it has a lot of value. It has a lot of practicality for how we can begin to live this idea of a rainbow nation, how we can begin to move beyond our own comfortable zones. Claim that personal responsibility. Take it, make it your own, and go out there and be the person who engages with people. People's accent should not be the things that are stopping us from engaging. When you do that, you are taking that personal power, that amandla, and you're saying, this is mine, and I'm giving you the permission too to do the same thing, pass it on, do it to somebody else. I must agree, it does not always work. I tried to do the same thing with this other girl at KFC. She looked at me funny, she said, do I know you? I said, no, you don't. She said, then I said, but does it matter? She says, yeah, well, if I know you, then we have a history, but I don't know you, so it's kind of weird. I said, well, now we have a history, right? Next time I see you, I'll say hello, you know, kind of thing. So yes, it's awkward. I agree. It's awkward. And people, they don't kind of gel in with it. But the thing is that these ideals and values that we have, unfortunately, will not, a new South Africa, a different South Africa that we have, will not be built on, you know, imaginary friends that I had once upon a time. They're all built with our everyday encounters with people that we see every day. So let's go out there, meet people, greet them, and have fun, banter around, tease them if you like. Thank you.